A boy vanished without a trace. His loyal dog searched every night. 10 years passed. And then, the dog returned, carrying something in its mouth. What the family found inside that object changed everything. And it was only the beginning. Daniel Carter was 9 years old. The kind of boy everyone described as bright. Not just because of his smile, but because of his curiosity. He was fascinated with the woods behind his family's small home in Maple Hollow. He knew every path, every crooked tree, every hidden stream. To him, the forest wasn't dangerous. It was magical. A place of secrets waiting to be discovered. His best friend was Max, an energetic golden retriever who never left his side. Wherever Daniel went, Max followed. Neighbors had seen them countless times, Daniel laughing as Max bounded through the leaves. It was a picture of innocence, of childhood untouched by fear. But no one knew then that those very woods held something darker. Something that had taken people before. On September 14th, Daniel ate pancakes at the kitchen table. He wore his favorite sneakers, the white ones with blue stripes. His mom remembered because he had begged her not to throw them out, even though they were wearing thin. That morning, Daniel told her he was going to find something special. She thought it was just another one of his imaginative games. By dusk, he was gone. When the sun slipped behind the trees, his mother's voice echoed desperately into the forest. No answer. Not even a rustle. By midnight, dozens of people were searching. Police, neighbors, even strangers who had heard about the missing boy. They scoured the forest with flashlights and dogs. But there was nothing. No shoe prints in the mud. No torn fabric. No broken twigs. Not a single clue that Daniel had ever entered the woods that day. The only sound was Max, barking into the darkness. Fur bristling. Growling at something no one else could see. Days turned into weeks. Posters went up across the county. Every abandoned cabin and stream bed was searched. Volunteers dragged ponds, checked drainage pipes, even crawled into caves. Nothing. Daniel's room remained untouched. His baseball cap sat on the desk. A half-finished drawing of a tree taped to the wall. Shoes lined neatly under the bed. Except one pair was missing. The sneakers he had been wearing that day. Max never stopped waiting. Every evening, the dog would stand at the tree line, whining softly as if calling to his boy. Sometimes he barked into the forest, other times he simply stared. Rumors grew in Maple Hollow. Some whispered that Daniel had been taken. Others believed he had run away. But the oldest residents spoke in hushed tones about the forest itself. They said it wasn't the first time someone had vanished there. And it wouldn't be the last. 10 years later. Max was old now. His fur grayed. His steps slower. But one evening, he limped into the forest as he had hundreds of times before. Hours passed. The family feared he wouldn't come back. But just as the sun began to fall, Max appeared at the edge of the yard. Tail wagging weakly. Mouth clenched tightly around something. At first, they thought it was a stick. But as Max drew closer, their hearts froze. It wasn't a stick. It was a shoe. Small. Dirty. But unmistakable. Daniel's missing sneaker. The family rushed it to police. Tests confirmed it. The size, the wear pattern, even traces of Daniel's DNA. But something was wrong. After 10 years exposed to weather, the shoe should have been destroyed. Instead, it looked almost new. As though it had been preserved. Hidden. Protected. And there was something inside. Stuffed deep in the toe was a folded scrap of paper. The edges yellowed, but the ink fresh. Almost wet. In Daniel's handwriting were 3 chilling words. "Don't follow me." The discovery shocked everyone. It meant Daniel had been alive after he vanished. But where had he been? And why would he leave such a cryptic warning? The police reopened the case. Officers retraced every step. Old witnesses were interviewed again. And strange details began to emerge. A retired officer admitted he once saw a boy near the woods years after the disappearance. The boy wore outdated clothes. When he called out, the boy ran into the trees and vanished. Another neighbor reported hearing laughter one night, faint but unmistakable. When she looked out her window, she swore she saw a small figure among the trees. It looked like Daniel, but his face was blurred in the shadows. As they dug deeper, the inconsistencies grew. Search records from the original investigation didn't line up. One report claimed an abandoned cabin had been searched. Another report from the same day claimed it hadn't. A map marked with cleared areas showed circles that didn't exist on the original version. Had records been altered? Or was someone covering something up? And then there were the photographs. Family pictures taken years later, birthdays, holidays, ordinary moments. In the background of several, a boy's figure appeared faintly between the trees. Always watching. Always at a distance. His face blurred. But his outline, his posture, his messy hair, everyone recognized it. It was Daniel. After bringing back the shoe, Max changed. He no longer waited at the tree line. Instead, he refused to go near the woods at all. If anyone tried to lead him there, he pulled back, growling. But at night, he would pace restlessly, whining, scratching at the door, as though something out there was calling to him. Then, it happened again. Just weeks later, another child vanished. 8 years old. Last seen playing near the same woods. The search was eerily familiar. No footprints. No broken branches. No sound. And on the third night of searching, a word appeared, carved freshly into a tree at the edge of the forest. 4 words. Sharp. Bleeding into the bark like a warning. He's not alone anymore. Panic spread through Maple Hollow. 2 disappearances. 10 years apart. Both without explanation. Theories spiraled out of control. Was someone living in the woods, taking children? Was it something supernatural? Or was Daniel himself involved? The family received anonymous letters. No return address. Just slips of paper with crude handwriting. One read, "He's still there." Another, "Don't look for him." Then came the twist no one expected. A hunter, tracking deer deep in the forest, stumbled across something chilling. A small shack, hidden among thick brush. Inside were children's belongings. Toys, shoes, clothes. But they weren't old. They looked recent. Pinned to the wall was a drawing. A child's drawing of a boy and a dog standing by the woods. The boy's face was smiling, but the dog's eyes were blackened out. Forensic teams analyzed everything. Fingerprints were smudged. DNA traces mixed and unclear. But one item stood out. An old notebook, half-burned. The first page legible. "My name is Daniel Carter. I am not supposed to be here." The town was stunned. Parents kept their children inside. Police combed the woods again. But the shack was gone. Within 48 hours, the entire structure had vanished. No trace it had ever existed. And then, another clue surfaced. A local hiker shared a photo he had taken weeks earlier. In the background, between the trees, stood a boy. Thin, pale, holding something in his hand. When the photo was enhanced, the object became clear. It was Daniel's missing baseball cap. The evidence was undeniable. Daniel hadn't simply vanished. He was still out there. But the question was no longer just where. It was what he had become. Because one night, Daniel's mother heard something outside her window. A soft sound. Like humming. A tune Daniel used to sing before bed. She rushed to the window. And there, at the edge of the forest, stood a figure. Small, still, watching the house. It was Daniel. But when the porch light flicked on, she saw his eyes. And they were not the eyes of her son. The boy who vanished 10 years ago was finally seen again. But his eyes were no longer his own. Daniel's mother froze at the window. The figure stood at the edge of the forest, motionless. Pale skin, hair matted, the same old sneakers, untouched by time. But his eyes glowed faintly, not like light reflecting, but like something alive inside them. She whispered his name, and then the boy tilted his head. Slowly, unnaturally. When she blinked, he was gone. Word spread fast. The town was divided. Some called it grief, visions caused by years of sorrow. Others whispered, Daniel was alive. But not the same. Police reopened patrols. Hunters armed themselves. Parents locked their doors. But sightings grew. Figures moving at dusk. Children swearing they heard whispers calling their names from the woods. The voice always sounded like someone they loved. Max, the old retriever, grew restless again. One night, he slipped out into the trees. By morning, he returned scratched, bleeding. And in his mouth was another object. A child's toy car. Not Daniel's, but the missing boy's. The one who vanished weeks earlier. Fresh blood smeared across its wheels. Detectives pieced the clues together. Daniel's shoe. The toy car. The shack that had vanished. The woods weren't just hiding Daniel. They were keeping others. But the question remained. How could children disappear without a trace? Why were their belongings surfacing years later, preserved, untouched by time? The forest stories. The oldest residents began speaking up. Stories they had buried for decades. One man recalled that, as a boy, his cousin disappeared in the same woods. Days later, his family found the cousin's voice on their porch. Not the cousin himself. Just his voice. Echoing in the dark. Another recalled strange carvings deep in the forest. Symbols no one could read. But always near where children vanished. And one woman swore she once saw Daniel after his disappearance. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, half hidden in the trees, were other figures. Small. Motionless. Staring. Weeks later, a hiker found something chilling. A rope ladder dangling from a tree. It led down into a sinkhole, hidden by thick brush. Inside were dozens of objects. Toys. Clothes. Shoes. All belonging to children who had gone missing in Maple Hollow for decades. But there was something else. A notebook. Its pages filled with childlike handwriting. Some words were crossed out violently. Others scrawled over and over again. One page stood out. The handwriting matched Daniel's. It read, "We're not lost. We're chosen." Police recovered an old cassette tape buried beneath the notebook. When they played it, a voice crackled to life. A boy's voice. Tired. Whispering. "Mom, don't look for me. Please don't look." Silence. Then another voice. Deeper. Not human. "He belongs to us now." The tape ended with a scream. The evidence shook the town. People wanted answers. But none came. Psychologists claimed Daniel had been brainwashed. Others said the tape was a hoax. But Daniel's mother knew the voice. It was him. Her son. And then, the letters returned. Slipped under the family's door. No footprints. No witnesses. The newest letter read, "He isn't the boy you lost. He's the boy we made." The new sightings. Children in the town reported strange things. One said Daniel appeared at his window, asking to be let inside. Another swore Daniel was standing in her backyard at night, holding her missing brother's cap. Each story was the same. Daniel appeared. Daniel spoke. But his words weren't his own. The father's dissent. Daniel's father, unable to endure the torment, entered the woods himself. For 3 days, he searched. On the 4th, he returned. But he was different. Silent. Eyes distant. When pressed about what he saw, he whispered one line. "The trees are not trees." And he never spoke again. Police analyzed all the dates of disappearances. The same day, every decade, a child had vanished from Maple Hollow. Always near the woods. Always without a trace. Daniel's case wasn't an exception. It was part of a pattern. A cycle. And the next date was approaching fast. A local reporter digging through archives uncovered a photograph from 1954. It showed a missing child with his family, taken the year before he vanished. In the background, barely visible among the trees, a boy. Same messy hair. Same sneakers with blue stripes. It was Daniel. In a photo taken decades before he was even born. The town spiraled into panic. Some believed Daniel wasn't a victim at all. He was part of it. A lure. A vessel. A warning. Others still held hope he could be saved. But then, one night, Daniel's mother woke to a sound. Scratching at the front door. When she opened it, Max was there. Dead. Around the dog's neck hung a ribbon. One Daniel used to wear in his hair during school plays. Pinned to it was another note, scrawled in the same childlike handwriting as before. He chose us. Now we choose you. The next morning, police swarmed the house. But the woods were silent. Until night fell, and dozens of children's voices echoed through the trees. Laughing, crying, calling out the names of the living. At the window, Daniel's mother saw them. Dozens of figures, standing among the trees. All children, all pale, all watching. And in the very front, Daniel, holding hands with another child. The boy who had gone missing weeks earlier. But this time, Daniel smiled, and whispered words his mother would never forget. You should never have waited. Now it's too late. Darkness swallowed the yard. The voices grew louder, and the forest moved. They thought Daniel was just a lost boy. But by the third night, the town realized he was something else. Something that had been here long before Maple Hollow even existed. After the sighting of dozens of pale children in the trees, fear spread like wildfire. Families packed and fled. Schools closed. The woods were sealed off. But it didn't matter. The voices didn't stop at the tree line anymore. They carried through the town. Through windows. Through walls. Children woke screaming in the night, claiming Daniel was whispering their names. Daniel's mother refused to leave. She knew the forest wanted her. But she couldn't abandon her son. One night, she followed the whispers. Into the trees. Deeper than before. And she found it. A clearing. Stone circles half buried in the ground. Symbols carved into bark. And in the center, dozens of toys, carefully arranged, like offerings. Her son's sneaker was there. Next to bones. But not animal bones. She picked up a damp, half-rotten book lying near the stones. Inside, faded ink described old rituals. The words were shaky, written by trembling hands. It spoke of the hollow children. Spirits bound to the forest. Not ghosts. Not demons. But something older. Every 10 years, one child would be chosen. A vessel. To keep the rest alive. To keep the woods breathing. And Daniel was one of them. Back at home, Daniel's father sat silently in his chair, still broken from his time in the woods. But when his wife showed him the journal, his hands began to shake. "I've seen them," he whispered. "They offered me a choice. But I said no. That's why they took him." His wife demanded answers. But he broke down, sobbing. "They said, if I had agreed, it would have been me. Not him. But I couldn't. I couldn't." The truth shattered her. Her husband had been given the chance to save Daniel. And he had refused. That night, the house was surrounded. Voices outside. Laughter. Whimpers. When she looked through the window, Daniel stood there again. Closer this time. But now, she noticed something. The children around him weren't just pale. Their faces were blurred. Shifting. Almost as if they weren't finished. And Daniel's shadow stretched wrong. Too tall. Too wide. Touching every corner of the yard. The sheriff arrived the next morning. He had something in his hands. Another cassette tape. No one knew who left it. No fingerprints. No tracks. They played it. At first, silence. Then a familiar voice. Daniel's. "Don't come here. Please. Don't." But then the sound changed. Other voices joined in. Hundreds of them. All children. And together they whispered, "We're not waiting anymore." Days later, the unthinkable happened. Children who had gone missing decades ago were spotted walking out of the forest. Still young. Still the same age they were when they vanished. They didn't speak. They didn't blink. They only followed Daniel. And behind them, the trees bent as if bowing. Panic consumed Maple Hollow. Parents barricaded themselves inside their homes. The sheriff called for state help, but when outside officers arrived, they laughed at the stories. Until one of their own disappeared. Vanished during patrol. The only thing left behind was his radio, crackling with the sound of children giggling. Daniel's mother couldn't endure it anymore. She decided she would face him. That night, she walked into the woods with nothing but a flashlight. Whispers guided her deeper, until she reached the same clearing again. Daniel was waiting. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, the children stared. And above them, hanging in the branches, were shapes. Not bodies. Not animals. But outlines. Waiting. Daniel stepped forward. "Mom," he said. But his voice split. Two voices at once. One was Daniel. The other was something else. He held out his hand. "Come with us," he said. "It doesn't hurt. Not if you don't fight it." She begged him to leave with her. To come home. He only shook his head. "You don't understand. Home isn't there. It's here. With them. With us." His smile widened. Too wide. Unnatural. And then she saw it. His sneakers weren't touching the ground. He was hovering, just inches above the dirt. Before she could run, Daniel dropped something at her feet. Her wedding ring. The one she had lost years ago. The one that had slipped from her hand near the kitchen sink and vanished without a trace. Daniel whispered, "We've always been here. Even inside your walls." The trees groaned. The ground shook. And dozens of hands began reaching up from the soil. She turned to run. But the flashlight flickered. And in its glow, she saw them. Not just Daniel. Not just the missing children. But herself. Dozens of versions of her. Standing in the clearing. All pale. All whispering. All staring at her with dead, glowing eyes. And then, in unison, they said, "You've already joined us. You just don't remember." The light went out. The forest screamed. For 10 years, the woods had kept its silence. For 10 years, the family lived with questions they could never answer. But when they finally returned to the place where it all began, what they found was not closure. It was something far darker. Something that should have stayed hidden forever. You remember how it started. A boy. 9 years old. He vanished in the woods without a trace. His dog returned years later with a shoe. Inside was a note, written in the boy's own hand. 3 chilling words. "Don't follow me." The town was shaken. The family destroyed. But then, the sightings began. Children in the tree-line. Pale faces. Eyes that did not blink. And whispers. Always whispers. The search turned into obsession. And in part 3, the father's secret was revealed. He had known something about the woods all along. Something about the hollow children. Now, they were going back. The mother, the older sister, a team of locals, and Max, the dog, though frail now. They followed the father's journal. Every entry reads like a warning. A map of the woods marked with strange symbols. One phrase repeated again and again. The hollow children are not what they seem. The family pressed deeper. Deeper than any search team had ever gone before. And that's when they found it. At the base of a ravine, hidden by brush and rock, there was a cave. Not natural. Carved. The walls etched with symbols that looked almost human, almost childlike. The air was colder inside. Too cold. And the deeper they went, the more they saw signs. Scratches on the stone. Tiny handprints pressed into the dirt. As if children had been living there. But how? 10 years had passed. And yet, the handprints were fresh. They came to a chamber. And that's where they froze. On the walls, written in charcoal, were dozens of notes. Short sentences. Each one frantic. Each one written in the boy's handwriting. "Stay away. They know my name. Don't let them hear you." And one final message. Scrawled so deep into the stone it tore his fingers bloody. "I'm still here." The mother collapsed. Her son, he had been alive. Somehow, for all those years alive. But where was he now? The sister spotted something else. Toys. Old toys. Cars, dolls, blocks. But all warped. Melted. As if they had been left in fire, yet untouched. And then they heard it. Footsteps. Small. Dozens of them. Echoing in the tunnels. The locals wanted to leave. But the mother refused. She had come too far. She wanted answers. They came in silence. At first just shadows. Then faces. Children. Dozens of them. But their eyes were wrong. Too dark. Too wide. Their mouths moving, but no sound escaping. The hollow children. And in the center of them all was Daniel. Not 9 anymore. But not older either. He looked exactly the same as the day he vanished. The mother cried out his name. But Daniel only stared. He spoke slowly, as if unused to words. "You shouldn't have come." The hollow children closed in. And suddenly the dog, old Max, began to snarl. The children hissed, shrinking back. And Daniel whispered one more thing, barely audible. "They don't like the light." Then the lanterns began to flicker. Panic. Screams. The group fled back through the cave. The hollow children chasing their footsteps like an army. The locals dropped their torches, stumbled, and fell. But the family pressed on, Daniel at their side now. They burst into the night air, just as the lanterns died completely. The forest swallowed the rest. Only the family made it out alive. Or so they thought. Back at the house, Daniel sat silent. He ate nothing. He blinked rarely. And when he finally spoke, his words froze them all. "They aren't children," he whispered. "They never were." He explained what had happened. How he had followed voices into the woods. Voices that sounded like his friends. But once inside, he realized they weren't human. They were something else. And they wanted him to stay. The journal was right. The hollow children weren't victims. They were lures. The father had known. He had bargained with them once, long ago. Traded something he never spoke of, in exchange for his family's safety. But Daniel had broken the pact by entering the woods. And now the hollow children wanted him back. That night, the family locked every door. Every window. Daniel sat in the corner, humming to himself. A song his mother didn't recognize. A song the hollow children sang in the cave. And then, the scratching began. At the windows. At the door. Tiny hands pressing against the glass. Dozens of them. The hollow children had followed them home. The family huddled together. The scratching turned to pounding. And then, silence. Daniel stood slowly. Walked to the door. And smiled. "They said they'd wait," he whispered. "But not forever." The next morning, the family awoke to find Daniel gone. No sign of forced entry. No broken glass. Only the front door, unlocked. On the table sat his shoe. The same shoe from 10 years ago. But this time, inside was a note. Written in his handwriting. 4 chilling words. "I let them in." The police never solved it. Some say the boy had been taken back into the woods. Others whisper he was never really Daniel at all. That what returned with them was something else. A copy. The house still stands. Abandoned. Windows broken. Grass overgrown. And at night, locals swear they see children at the edge of the property. Silent. Watching. No one goes near after dark. Because everyone knows the same truth now. The hollow children don't belong to the forest anymore. They belong everywhere. And the boy who vanished may not have vanished at all. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some stories are meant to follow you home. Stories like this leave us with so much to think about. What's your take? Do you believe this was fate, coincidence, or something beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And if this story gave you chills, the next one will leave you speechless. It's already waiting for you, right here on your screen. Make sure you're subscribed, and don't forget to hit the bell, so you'll never miss the twists, turns, and shocking truths we uncover next. Click on the next story now, and dive deeper into the mysteries that refuse to be forgotten.